Hello, my name is Osha. I like to talk about American presidents and yeah, the way I pronounce president, it's kind of bizarre. But yeah, American presidents. I guess the more I say it, it will roll off the lips uh, more fluently or easily. Um, but today I want to talk about the CIA World Factbook, the end of the CIA World Factbook. Um, Most people don't even know what the CIA World Factbook is, and it's unfortunate that um, its publication ceased this early this year, this February. Yeah, um, it's 2026. It's been around since about 1997. That's the unclassified publication accessible on the CIA World Factbook website. So it was a publication, a reference, one-stop resource um, guide with encyclopedic knowledge, sort of a CIA of countries around the world, right? Governments, facts, facts and data, and an invaluable reference guide. The CIA made it open. Started its unclassified version in 1997, and so just I came to the U.S. in the 90s, and I was very fortunate that I started using it as soon as I came because I was in school. I was in business school then, an accounting major, and a classmate of mine who was an international student. It was actually a Chinese student who um, showed it to me, right? And I've been using it ever since. And so when I remember a long time ago, not to, when I showed it to people, right, the data to people so that they could use it as a good resource because I'm a fan of data. I love information, right? And these people thought I was CIA because I simply knew of the CIA World Factbook site, and no, I wasn't CIA and I'm not CIA. But I remember, so, yeah, it is like an encyclopedia of the world, countries around the world. And then you had information on the economy, the population, resources a nation has, so many different things on all countries in the world. And the CIA was pretty good with its data. And it was from the CIA World Factbook that I knew when Nigeria became 150 million in population, when we became 200 million, when we became over, approaching 250 million, it's from the CIA World Factbook that I knew that Nigeria was amongst the top 25 largest economies in the world. It was from the CIA World Factbook that I knew that it had dropped out of the 25 largest economies in the world by GDP. That it was now about 27. Now I wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be easy for me to access um, that data anymore because we no longer have the CIA World Fact Book because the current CIA director decided to do away with it. Um, which kind of is sad. Um I remember when I first came to America again in the 90s, and I had a roommate. I stayed on campus then when I first came, and so my roommate was a white guy. Well, he was Australian, right? And a very cool guy. It's funny that we're still connected today after many years, and he's doing very well. He's married. He married his college girlfriend, and his kids went to the same school. His daughter has graduated from the school we both went to, right? And is a journalist. So yeah, once old man, but yeah. I remember I was fascinated with the internet, and the internet was not. When I was growing up in Nigeria, it wasn't a thing. It was in America that, when I came to America that I was astonished that it was, it was just available, and everything, it was free. And I remember I'd have these discussions with him that why did, because I was in business school, I was an accounting major. And he was too, by the way, and he's actually a CPA partner in a, in a big CPA firm, national CPA firm, so which is cool. And I'd ask him that because I guess I was thinking like a business-minded person. Why is it free? It doesn't make sense that the cost of innovating, inventing the internet, why did they just make it free? Why aren't they charging? And he said, yeah, that wouldn't become like wouldn't they start charging for its use in the future? I said, no, it will always be free. And he talked about how its free access, makes, it fuels innovation, and, you know, um, it creates other services, it generates other, services, and it's very good for society, because it facilitates the creation of more innovation. And I mean, 27 years after that, yes, he's that's still the case, at least in America, that the internet is still free. I remember when I went to live in Europe, when I went to school in Europe, um, I came to see the benefits of living in America. In America, our internet is like unrestricted, unconstrained. You just get in and you're just everywhere, all over the world. In Europe, that's not the case. You get in, you try to sign in on the internet in Italy, in England. I don't know even which one's worse, but it's, you're just hampered by all these uh, obfuscating filters, firewalls. You have to, you have to give your consent to everything. It's, all these pop-ups that you always have to consent to, the places you can't go, it restricted, filtered. Oh, it was I hardly used the internet there because it was just like you were moving through a maze, and so work wasn't easy. And you can see why America is so innovative, continues to churn out innovation far more than Europe because of um, its unrestrained, robust use, uh, its unrestrained, uh, internet platform. It continues to generate innovation, and the same thing with information, right? That's with respect to the CIA World Factbook. I remember when my friend showed me the CIA World Factbook. I guess I was like, wow. I love information, and I mean, I grew up on having encyclopedias in my home and constantly perusing encyclopedias. So I didn't think about it that, wow, shouldn't the CIA be charging? That why would they make this information available? That it must have cost them a lot of money to gather the information, right? But they make it so easily available, right? And so it's like solitus. It's that's another Latin term, right? It's usual, commonplace. They make it very conventional, right? As opposed to sui generis. I remember that was a term I learned in intellectual property. So that was, as I just mentioned, in Italy. I remembered what I went to do there, and I remember that term sui generis. So sui generis is like it's commonplace, knowledge, factual, but because there's so much money that you put into gathering investment, that you put into gathering that information, which is available. It's facts that's available, but your investment in the labor of getting that data is protected, right? And CIA wasn't doing that. Um, but again, so now that they've taken away the CIA World Factbook, you know, I, at one time, like I said, I used to wonder that. Is it, especially knowing the nature of the CIA. I mean, in the world, its operations are typically considered disruptive, right? I mean, and when I say disruptive, because normally when we say disruptive, we think of technology as it, being it creating new radical technologies that are good. When I say, the CIA's activities, international activities are known to be disruptive, I'm not talking about in a positive way. I'm talking about in an inimical, in an inimical, it's creating, it's like troublemaking, right? Um, Obstreperous, right? I like words. But something good that the CIA was doing for everyone was the CIA World Factbook, and it gave us great information. Was a great resource for free, and being able to be that one-stop shop for reliable resource. I mean, I guess we can discuss the reliability of the data that the CIA was giving us. Some people might be cynical and think, well, maybe the CIA was putting stuff out there that was just that was misleading in this world of fake news. Because on Facebook, you see the amount of fake news, fake data that they put on Facebook. It's my gosh, fake quotes, attributing quotes, fake quotes. It's funny, it's very misleading. But the thing is, I don't think the CIA had a cynical intent, because it was available for a very long time, and it was the one good thing I think anybody who got to use the CIA World Factbook would agree with that. That it was a service to humanity, to the world of learners and innovation, to have the one-stop shop of the CIA World Factbook. Now, in terms of reliability, I used to cross-check Nigeria, the way I would get to know, and especially America. I live in America. I would, I know what's going on in America. I'm always consuming information. So I know if, I'm able to cross check certain things. Of course, I can go and check the mineral resources that are available and the quantities, from the CIA World Factbook. That was how I knew who were the biggest nations that have the largest oil reserves for a long time ago. Now people are just knowing, but for the longest, I knew the nations with the largest oil reserves. For a long time, I knew Venezuela was number one by far. Number two was Saudi Arabia. Number three was Iran. Number four, I think Iraq. I always knew the numbers. I knew Nigeria was in the top 10, right, of largest oil reserves. In terms of liquefied natural gas, I knew Nigeria was in the top four, top three, or top five, or whatever, and having, the most liquefied natural gas in the world. I got to know so much stuff. I consumed the CIA World Factbook regularly, and now I'm missing that, and um, yes, there's that concern that, well, the CIA is providing information, investing a lot to get information that's reliable, and other competing nations can just access it for free. But there's one thing about being a reliable source, you being recognized as a reliable provider of a free resource. What about respect? The respect that comes with it. People get to respect you. And I think, many times we should think about respect and the idea that everybody gravitates towards one who's considered reliable, as opposed to always, this zero sum cutthroat competition that, well, if you're providing something, your competition is getting access to it as well. And I think the CIA World Factbook was that one-stop shop that was creating more community, more of that global community that we could have consensus. And I think that's where the America has to, you know, as a leader, America has to think more in, on those terms, right? How we can create a community and it can, be revered, as a community leader, as a consensus builder. I mean, I'm missing the CIA World Factbook. I don't know what's going to replace it. It was an amazing World Encyclopedia, and they updated it regularly every year. They changed the data, they updated the data. Because I have a history degree from Nigeria, right? I studied Nigerian history a lot. I knew that many times I would, I'd cross check, my knowledge of Nigerian history, and of course I have friends who are in the Nigerian government. My brother's works there and all that. I could easily cross check with information the CIA put out there, and yes, sometimes it seemed like um, they often had, you know stereotypical information, right? That wasn't, well, yeah, in their overview section, right? It was still very, very, right. That, oh well, Nigeria has had, there's corruption, there's insecurity, there's, economic mismanagement. What else is new? Something everybody knows, right? But hey, um, in terms of the fact, the actual statistics, with regard to population, resources, economy, I was always so impressed. It was from the CIA World Factbook that I knew that China now actually had the largest GDP in the world, and America is actually number two. The media, the mainstream media like CNN, they weren't reading the CIA World Factbook. I was very surprised when I joined the U.S. government and I found that my colleagues didn't even know what the CIA World Factbook was, and we were working in national security, and they did. I was one who showed them, and they were stunned. They didn't know what the CIA World Factbook was. I would have thought that in America, especially for people born and raised here in America, I would have thought that people who wanted to work in national security or in the US government and the civil service, they would have become accustomed to the CIA World Factbook, considering how invaluable an encyclopedia resource about governments of the world. They would have become accustomed to it since they were kids, right? They'd know it in elementary and high school, especially. But these were people who were middle-aged people who didn't even know what the CIA World Factbook is. And now it's gone. I hope they bring it back, or somebody else, another agency replaces it, because we need it. Anyway, I'll keep you posted. Thank you.